Howdy, Erick Hailstone here. Today we're going to talk about finger picking. But before I start on that, I want to introduce this guitar. A Yamaha silent guitar. Check this out. Pretty amazing. So this is made so that you can plug into it. It's got a built-in preamplifier. And believe it or not, it sounds incredible as an acoustic guitar. And you may notice this pickup here. This is not standard. A friend of mine put this in so I could have a jazz guitar type sound in my travel. Today we're going to talk about finger picking. And as I approach the subject, I think of it in a couple of different ways. One, kind of a Travis picking approach where we have an alternating bass line and then an arpeggiated chord. You hear that pattern from the song Dust in the Wind. The other thing I think about is classical guitar. The beauty of going through a classical guitar study is they've been doing it for so long, they have covered almost anything you can imagine. For today, I'm going to break things down into kind of a classical guitar approach where we're developing technique for our right hand, and then kind of a Travis-based, more folk-based, and then we will take that and move it into contemporary worship songs. The first thing we're going to look at is classical guitar arpeggios. And we're going to break this down into 3 or 4 different categories. The first would be an arpeggio that rolls forward from low to high. For these exercises, I'm going to play this C chord and then a variation of this G7th chord. We're just going to play the top strings. We're not going to play that low note. So in fact, the Giuliani right hand studies, every single one of them uses just these 2 chords. All right, so first we have a triplet pattern where your first and second fingers, in classical guitar we refer to these fingers as P, I, M, and A. So P is your thumb, I is your first finger, M is your middle, A is your ring finger. If you ever use the little finger, it's C. The thumb will play the A string, the C note, then it will play the B string, that's also a C note, and then the high E string. And it's a triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then the thumb moves to this D string where it's playing E note, and then to the G string. And that is what you play for the C chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the G7th, you play the same pattern. So the whole pattern is so the idea would be to sit and practice these very, very slowly. When you start something like this, just focus on the clarity and the quality of every note that you play. Don't worry about time at all. Time is the last thing you want to think about. So right there, when I played this D string, one of my fingers bumped it, so it interfered with the clarity of the note. All right, once you feel like you've got this so the notes are really a high quality, really clear, really clean, then you can add a metronome and start building your technique. But again, technique, speed, that's the last thing on the list of things we want. I can promise you, if you make your entire focus on making nothing but beautiful notes, you will achieve really, really good technique. I'll never forget, I was teaching at a music store, and the teacher next to me was a horn player, and we were talking about important things to consider with our students and what they should be doing. And she was saying the most important thing for her students are to make really long tones. And she was talking about clarinet. The idea is when you make a long tone, it's really difficult to make it a beautiful tone. So the more you focus on long tones, the better your sound is going to be. The next exercise uses the exact same notes, but now instead of playing triplets, we're playing 16th notes. So 16th notes, 4 notes, 1 E and Do, 1 E and Do. So your thumb is on the low A, your first finger starts on the G string, your thumb is going to alternate from the A string and the D string, playing C and E. You just play that until you get it really, really even. The pattern on the G7th chord, the next one goes back to playing a triplet, but now we're going to play with our thumb, our first and our second finger, from the A string, the D string, and the G string. And then we move our 3 strings over to the next group of strings. So now we're playing the D, G, and B. And then finally to the G, B, and E. When you get to the top, leave these 2 fingers on the B and E string and let your thumb come back down to the first note, play it. So the whole thing looks like this. When we go to the G7th chord, we do the same pattern, starting on the A string. Play the whole thing now. Creates this rolling effect across the strings. The next one is also a triplet pattern, but it spreads out our fingers. So our thumb will be on the A string, our first finger will be on the G string. I'll play this high E string with my third finger. So you're playing C, G, E, then your thumb moves to the D string, that's an E note. So far, all of these patterns are arpeggios rolling forward, going from low to high. The next group is the opposite of that. They go from high notes to low notes. You'll play with your thumb, and then instead of rolling forward, the next note is the highest note. If you compare this to the first exercise I showed you, it's the exact opposite. Everything's rolling from high to low. What we're playing with our thumb is exactly the same. The next one is a 16th note exercise, 1 E and Do. 1 E and Do, 2 E and Do. And the last one, we start with our thumb, we're playing high to low, but we're playing in the middle strings, then we go to the upper strings. our next group is going to take both of these and combine them. So our arpeggios will roll forward from low to high, and then from high to low. So the first one we have here has 6 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And your low note is alternating from C to E. So C, E, C, E. When we go to the G chord, the bass line is B, D, B, D. The next one I'm going to play is called a double stop arpeggio. And a double stop arpeggio, when you play the bass note, you're going to play one more note with it. So our thumb is playing the low A string. This is a C note. And at the same time, we're going to pluck the G string. So we pluck these two together. Then our middle finger plays the B string, the E string, then the B string. So 1 and 2, and these are 16th notes. Our thumb goes to the D string and plays an E note with that G. And we do the same thing with our G7. So when you play two notes together, it gives you the illusion of a chord. So it's another approach to creating an accompaniment. One of the other things that you'll hear in classical guitar is the use of tremolo. The most famous example of that I can think of is Malagueño, where you hear the So the tremolo is this top E note. The melody is all played with the thumb, and then depending on how many notes you decide to use for the tremolo, in this case it's one note, so after each melody note I play a high E note. We could also play two notes in between, so same melody. And the next is three notes. There is a technique where four notes would be played, and the difference would be you start with your first finger, I, then you go to your ring finger, then your middle finger, and then you end on your first finger. So 1, 2, 3, 4, four notes in between the melody notes. Now, with some practice, you can get this so you can play it quite fast, and you can use it to create some very interesting accompaniment. So I'm going to take some of these arpeggios that we just went through. Again, this is classical study, and think of it this way. You go through these exercises to build technique, and now I'm going to take a 1, 6 minor, 4 major, 5 major chord progression. In the key of C, that would be C, A minor, minor, F and G. In the key of G would be G, E minor, C and D. And let's just take some of the arpeggios that we went through a moment ago. So using the forward arpeggios, that's a triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now if I want to give it more activity, more energy, then I'll do it twice as fast. I'll do 6 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now 6, 1. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do the reverse. I'm going to take the triplet that we had that rolled across the chord,